So, for the past month or two, my feed on TikTok and YouTube have both been flooded with videos about Bloodmoney and the Human Expenditure Program. And for good reason. At the surface level, the games look deceptively innocent, with its bright pastel color palette, upbeat music, and its charming, cheerful main character, Harvey Harvington. It's only when you start progressing through the games that eventually you find out why it's called Bloodmoney and the Human Expenditure Program. These games get brutal, with Harvey being subjected to ever-increasing amounts of torture at the hands of the player, and being almost completely powerless to stop it. And the games definitely make you feel for Harvey, as Harvey's voice actor, Dexter Manning, delivers his lines in a way that reflect the amount of pain, fear, anger, and betrayal his character feels. Both games start on a positive note, with Harvey walking you through the first parts of the games with an upbeat and positive attitude. In Bloodmoney, if you choose to progress by just clicking him or using the feather or needle, Harvey continues to respond positively, occasionally offering you words of encouragement as you progress. It's only when you, as the player, opt to using the more brutal tools from the shop that Harvey goes from happily cheering you on to outright begging for his life. The Human Expenditure Program is set up slightly different. You play as Harvey's wife, Unmi, who transfers his body and consciousness into a virtual simulation, basically turning him into something similar to a Tamagotchi, and you have to feed and play games with him in order to keep him happy and healthy. The first few days of the simulation go relatively well. While Harvey does express his concerns about having some pretty bad dreams when he goes to sleep, and states that he misses their son Toby, he still tries to remain positive and cooperates with the simulation. It's only when Unmi's greed and her emotions start to get the better of her and she panics that Harvey learns the real reason why his wife has placed him into the simulation. You see, for those who don't know, the events of Bloodmoney and the Human Expenditure Program run parallel to one another, and every time Harvey goes to bed in the simulation, he is then forced to run his little booth in the Bloodmoney game to be tortured by the players. The reason why Harvey is fine for the first few days and writes it all off as a bad dream is because Yunmi resets him using a remote, which winds up becoming less and less effective as the simulation goes on. By day 4, Harvey starts to take on a disheveled appearance and wakes up with a deep gash in his hand. Day 5, he loses an eye and pleads to be let out. Yunmi tries to assure him that his injuries are just a glitch in the system and that she'll fix it. But unfortunately, she ends up doing the opposite. In her confusion and frustration, she ends up breaking the remote that controlled Harvey's resets. By day 6, Harvey starts to realize the truth and begins retaliating. He no longer wants to eat or play, and trying to click on him to get his mood up no longer works. And by day 7, he knows the truth and confronts Yunmi directly, leading to the most valid crash out I think I've ever seen in a game like this, in one of the most crushing endings I've ever gotten to experience. Overall, I do love these games and the story that they tell. The way these two games tie into one another is just brilliant, and it really starts to make you think once you realize what's going on. However, there is one major gripe that I have with the Human Expenditure Program that has become my main pet peeve when it comes to these sort of click-and-choose type of games, and that is when the game's creator gives the player the illusion of choice rather than actual choice. Yes, there is a difference. Let me explain. In Bloodmoney, for instance, you do have a choice. You can choose to be good to Harvey and just play the game by clicking him or using the feather, thus giving you the good ending. You get your money, Harvey doesn't get hurt, and you can both walk away happy. Or you could choose to avoid buying the more lethal tools and end the game with Harvey taking you to court and getting a life sentence for causing him severe bodily harm. Or you could choose all of the tools, killing Harvey and getting the bad ending. Basically, you have options, and some of those options lead to a better outcome than others. In the Human Expenditure Program, on the other hand, though, you don't really have a choice. Yes, despite all the games you can play, including one that you unlock called Save Harvey, despite the fact that you're playing as the character Eun-mi and Harvey is your husband, despite Toby telling you that he misses his dad and is wondering when he's going to come home, despite seeing the malfunctions and seeing Harvey get hurt, despite Harvey himself pleading for his life and begging to be let out of the simulation, you're only really given two options. Make it all the way to the end of the game where Harvey deletes himself, giving you the true ending, or neglecting him to the point where Harvey dies from starvation, giving you the dead ending. No, you cannot save Harvey through the Save Harvey minigame. No, you cannot get him out of the simulation. Your options are either death or death. Which do you like? Neither. I don't like either of these options. And that's what I mean when I say that this game gives the illusion of choice as opposed to actual choice. From my own perspective, there are multiple points in the game where you should have been given the option to pull Harvey out. Right off the top of my head, when Toby walks in asking where Harvey is. I feel like that could have been a good opportunity for you and me to be offered a choice. Free Harvey or keep playing. But no, I guess Eun-mi is just a glacier that doesn't feel anything when her own son is sad because he misses his dad. Mother of the Year, everybody! The second? Oh, I don't know. How about when Harvey loses a freaking eye and he's literally crying and begging to go home? You know, at least let the Save Harvey minigame work, even if it's extremely hard, even if it's only a temporary fix. At least she can get credit for trying. No, it's just a glitch. She'll fix it. Not! Or how about when, oh, I don't know, when the reset remote breaks? At that point, it's time to abort the mission. Eun-mi doesn't know if the resets are working anymore. The bug reports from the Bloodmoney players are piling up. Time to pack it in, girl. Yes, Harvey would still be hurt and scared, and the two of you would more than likely get a divorce, but at least you'd both still be alive. Or maybe, just maybe, at the end of day 6, when Harvey asks if she's going to fix him and if this is all going to be over, have that yes or no option actually mean something. For instance, if Eun-mi can't get him out, like she does not possess the knowledge to get him out of the simulation, have that be the moment where Eun-mi tells him, at the very least, I'm sorry, I don't know how to get you out of this. I'll do what I can from out here, but you're stuck in there, Harvey. Something like that. Or, hear me out. When Harvey is crashing out on day 7, let Eun-mi have one final chance at letting Harvey out of the simulation. Sure, letting him out at that point would probably lead to Harvey strangling her as soon as he was out of the game, but it would be Harvey's victory over the person that subjected him to that. Then, and only then, if all else fails, and Eun-mi still refuses to let Harvey out of the simulation, then fine. Let Eun-mi be the cold, money-hungry bitch that drove her husband to literally delete himself for the sake of earning some cash. Heck, you could still call it the true ending. But do think of the players that might want a little bit more out of the game than that. You know, all of this coming from the guy that created something called the Bad Ending series. And believe me, I love angst. Like, the true ending to me is just good stuff. But like I said, this is a pet peeve of mine, where you're doing all of this stuff, making all of these decisions, and in the end, none of it really matters. You can't pull Harvey out of the simulation even if you, as the player, really want to. You can't save Harvey through the Save Harvey minigame. Even if you, the player, really want to, the only choice you really have is either continuing all the way to the end of the game, where Harvey deletes himself, or letting him die from neglect like he's a goddamn Tamagotchi. And there are games out there that give the player real choices throughout the story. Real choices that either impact how the characters behave towards one another, or which direction the story goes. The original Bloodmoney does this very well. by offering 4 different endings: the good ending, the normal ending, the bad ending, and the secret ending. You're actually given room to think about which direction you want this interaction to go, and there are consequences that impact what happens to Harvey, his dialogue towards you, and what ending you ultimately get. Another game that does this relatively well? Cooking Companions, believe it or not, which I've talked about before on this channel. Yes, there are outcomes in that game that are unavoidable and that I don't particularly like, but which characters you interact with and how often you interact with them do have an impact on how they behave towards the main character in the game. They determine what you learn about who, if you learn anything at all. Your decisions can impact your relationship with the Chompettes, and what you find scattered around the cabin can impact how prepared you are in later scenes. Your decisions have consequences. A game that does this phenomenally well, though, Nix Hydra's The Arcana. Your choices matter so much in this game, from the route you choose to play, which areas you choose to explore, how you respond to other characters. Your choices have an impact, and no matter how wildly they may differ, each character's route still tells the exact same story, just from a different perspective and by exploring different aspects. If you haven't played this game, I highly recommend it. I feel like what I'm trying to say is that if you're going to commit yourself to making a game that makes the player think that their decisions in the game actually matter, then commit to the bit. This was the exact same gripe that I had about the game Obey Me, Shall We Date. The choices that you make in that game felt like they didn't really matter story-wise. Characters don't really act all that differently no matter which decision you go with. The only thing that your choices end up impacting is how quickly your relationship level goes up with who. For the Human Expenditure Program, the overarching story can be about a woman consumed by greed that put her husband into a simulation in order to get herself out of debt and get rich. But, and the player takes it from there. The true ending. It all goes wrong, Yunmi is exposed, and she permanently loses her husband in the process. The dead ending. Yunmi becomes more focused on earning money than caring for Harvey, and Harvey dies from neglect. The good mom ending, I guess, where Yunmi chooses to let Harvey out of the simulation to see Toby and they can be a family. The divorce ending, I guess, where at some point after day 4 and before day 7, Yunmi decides to save Harvey from the simulation, but their relationship is in shambles because of it. Or a revenge ending on day 7, where Yunmi lets Harvey out of the simulation at the very last second and he kills her. That could be fun. And if someone is about to tell me that Yunmi doesn't know how to get Harvey out of the simulation, because from what I've heard, Harvey is all the way in there. Consciousness, body, soul, all of it. And that's why she never let him out of the game, then that is a major plot hole that Shroomy Christ needs to mend and mention in the game. Anyways, I'm done. That'll be all for this video, you guys. Thank you for watching. I know I'm a little late to the Bloodmoney hype party, but this has been weighing on my mind for a minute, and I felt like I needed to discuss it. For the record, I'm not privy to all of Shroomy's lore drops about Bloodmoney or the Human Expenditure Program, so if there's something that I am neglecting to take into consideration, feel free to enlighten me in the comments. What's up with the emu, though? I really want to know. Anyways, my name is BlueRaven666, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!